So to do a parallax, the first thing that we need to do is find a good photo to use to do it. And so something that has a strong foreground and a distant background, this works the best. And also something that's kind of blurry around the edge of the foreground thing. So what we're going to do here is separate this girl on the cliff from the background because she's going to be moving at a different speed than the background. So I already have this path drawn around her, so I'm going to make the selection. And I am going to go ahead and copy her so we can prepare the background and have her separately too. So let's do Control C, Control V. So we have her by herself now, and now we want to take her off of this background. So I'm going to get my path again, click on my path, make selection, and I'm going to use Content Aware Fill to get rid of her. So let's go to Edit and Fill and choose Content Aware and say OK. So when I do Control D to deselect, you can see that it's still, left some lines there. You can get the spot healing brush and just kind of go around and brush over those lines that it left. This is not going to be perfect. That's why you kind of need a picture that's blurry, but I will show you how you can kind of hide these areas. Plus the girl on the cliff is still going to be on top of this area for the most part. You just want to be able to use some of the photo in the parallax. So let's get rid of those lines. Obviously you can spend more time to do better if you need to, but for the purposes of this video I'm just going to go kind of quick. Alright, so that is pretty decent or decent enough, and so then I'll have her on the background and then have her on the top layer, and then you can see if I move like the background layer, you won't be able to see where she was. It'll still look okay. So let me undo that. I'm also going to get a cloud layer and that's already had the background removed and copy it in this layered file before I import it into Premiere. So I'm going to make this clouds bigger so that I can kind of scroll them by. They're going to be moving along in the parallax video that I make. So I'm going to enlarge them quite a bit. And since the color of them doesn't really match, I'm going to change them. I'm going to do Control B, color balance, kind of give them a little bit more of a bluish tint instead of that yellow, and then maybe get rid of some of the saturation on it, give it kind of a grayer feel, and then I'll probably lower the opacity a little bit as well. Alright, and that'll also help hide some of the things that, some of the lines that were left there from when we removed the girl from the background. Alright, so now once you have a Photoshop file prepared, you can save that as the layers. I'm going to go ahead and name this. It'll make it a lot easier on us when we bring it into Premiere. Alright, once you get your Photoshop file ready, you can go ahead and open Premiere Pro and get started in there. The first thing I want you to import in your project panel is, let me double click that. I want you to use this thing called Start Background. I'm going to give that to you. And this will help force your project to be 1080p in case you forget to set it up at the beginning of your project. I want to make sure that everybody's file isn't too big because these graphics that we're importing are a lot bigger. And you can just go ahead and leave it for, make your video about the length that it automatically imports that. Let me just give this a test. Yep, that's a good length for this. Alright, so let's start from the beginning, and we're going to go ahead and import that Photoshop file. So you just double click in your project panel. And what you want to do is import as individual layers. That way we can have the girl, the clouds, and the cliff all imported individually. And then we're going to open this bin up and go ahead and drag them into the timeline. So we want the cliff to be on the bottom. And we're going to click on this program. We're going to actually go over here to Effect Controls let's go on the cliff background on that layer here. And by the way, you can double click in here to expand these. That way you can actually see which one you're working on. I want to reduce the size of this cliff. So let me go over here to scale and reduce it so that the width is just the width of my screen right here. And then the position, whoops, we want to go to this second one right here where it says 540, and just go ahead and let's lower that so that it's just at the top. Alright, so the width is the width of the screen, and it's butt up against the very top of our screen there. Okay, and now let's go ahead and import the clouds. Double click that so we can see them, and let's go on the clouds layer and let's position the vertical alignment of those. I don't know where they are, they're off screen. Here we go. Let's bring them up where we can see them. Let's scale them to be a little bit bigger. You don't want them to be just the size of the window because we're going to have them moving by, so you can make those bigger. And let's lower them like that. And I think I'm going to give them a little bit of a tint. They look a little bit too grayed out, and I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit on here too so that they're kind of see-through. And to give it a tint, let's go to Effects and go to Video Effects and do Color Correction. Let's give it a color balance or tint. I'm going to go with color balance. So we're going to drag that on there, and then we can make some edits over here. So let's go to, we want to turn down the red. It's a little bit too red. Obviously we don't want to get it too much because then it turns green. Let's lower the red balance in the midtones and then the highlights. Alright, so you can edit that more to your liking. I don't want to waste a lot of time on it for this video, but it looks a lot better if you adjust the tint a little bit on there so it matches the background a little better and isn't so yellow. Alright, and now let's go back to our project window and let's open our folder and let's get the girl on the cliff and put her on the top. I'm going to double click that to expand the window. And let's make sure that that layer is selected, and let's go to position and find her. I saw her. You can just drag this. What I'm doing is I'm going where this vertical displacement number is, and I'm just dragging it up until I see her. And let's scale her to be about like that, and let's rest it on the bottom and go over and press or make her line up on the right. Alright, that looks like a pretty good starting point for where we want this to be. Yeah, let's go with that. So what you need to do first is rewind this all the way, and we need to put keyframes at the beginning so that we're telling Premiere we want it to start here. And we're going to be changing the position and the scale of all three of these layers. So go ahead and click on Position and Scale. You'll see that we have keyframes there now. Now let's go on the Clouds layer and click Position and Scale, and then on the cliff let's do Position and Scale. Alright, so we've set a starting point for what we want it to look like in the beginning, and then you're going to move your time indicator to the very end there, and we are going to put more keyframes. But now once we've pressed the stopwatches, we don't need to press that again or it'll delete our keyframe. At this point we're going to click over here, add keyframe, and let's go do that on all those. Add keyframe, and finally on our top, add keyframe. Alright, so while we're on the top, let's move this layer. So I know that for sure I want her to come down at the end. So I want it to look like she's coming down, and I'm going to go ahead and scale her up a little bit. We're going to be like zooming into her. So let's see how that looks. Scroll back. Alright, I'm going to go on that one keyframe and scale her a little bit more, and maybe move her position up a little bit, something like that. So So let's go play that back and see how she looks. All right, that'll work. We can always change it later if we want. Now let's go to the end of the video again and go to our keyframe for our clouds. So make sure you activate the clouds layer, and you are going to go to position and scale. So on the position, let's go to the x-axis right here and move these so it looks like the clouds are, let's see, actually we need to make them look bigger. Let's go to scale and enlarge them. And we can't see them anymore, so let's move them up a little bit. I think this tint looks kind of bad. I would change the color a little bit more, but you can go in and edit that as you wish. And let's have the clouds start from right there. All right, and then while I am over here at the end of the video, I'm going to go ahead and change the position of the cliff. So we're going to go over here to position, and on the x-axis, whoops, the cliff layer, and let's change it so that it looks like we're zooming like that, so it rests on the bottom. Alright, I don't know how this is going to look, but let's give it a try. There we go. That's not too bad. Other than the clouds being too greenish looking, that at least shows you how to do a parallax. So basically you're moving different layers at different speeds and directions by making keyframes and changing the position and the scale. When you're done with those, you can put like a little cross dissolve on them. So let's go to effects and go to video transitions, dissolve, and drop a cross dissolve on all of these here, so that it fades in and out. We'll put them on the end.